Hi, I'm Dr. Mollie Marti, and welcome to Resiliency Matters. Today we are speaking with Troy Cicero, president of MulticultuReal Communications, a firm specializing in creating environments of inclusion. Welcome, Troy.
Mollie, it's a pleasure to be here. Holiday season, and I'm feeling fabulous. I'm feeling fabulous. Yeah, just having a pleasant day.
And I know you're going to bring the fabulous today to our viewers and listeners, so thank you for that. You have been doing this work a long time, since 1994. Sure. You have been working on creating inclusive, welcoming environments. Share a bit about your core philosophy behind this work.
Sure, absolutely. So philosophy-wise, we have engaging real conversations, so important, with real respect, building real relationships for real results. So in that space of inclusive culture, the conversations are so important on a respectful basis. And how do we hear each other? How do we listen to each other? How do we communicate in a way that is cross-cultural, and that ability, that openness, that the environment allows us to be who we are. The relationships that build from that certainly improve morale. They improve teamwork, productivity, performance, and that's all about where the results come. You know, there's the business case, there's the bottom line impact. Of course, it's the right thing to do when you create an environment of inclusion, because people want to bring their full talents, gifts, and skills to the success of the organization when it's welcome. One of the biggest challenges is the concept of difference, right? So when we have our commonalities and we know the things that, are similar, we get along really well, but it's the differences. And I kind of like to take it back to when we were little and in the playground. What happened to the child who was different, right? We attach a devaluation of less than because we tease when that child was different. That child gets teased, bullied, picked on, ostracized, picked last, not picked at all, beat up, all of that. And if we're not careful, we take that conditioning into adulthood, and we don't know that when someone is different, right, we have these behaviors that are contrary to the mission, vision, and values normally of an organization. So we really got to look at accepting differences for an inclusive culture, treating one another well internally is going to then extend externally. So you can always tell an organization that treats its people well because they're treating you well as a customer, as a client, right? So those things are very important to take care of internally. Empathy, how do we put ourselves in other people's, not just their shoes, because that's cliche, but in their reality, is also going to be toward an inclusive culture in the work that we do, helping in that space of empathy, building up leaders, and throughout the organization, emotional intelligence has always been at the forefront of what we do as well. So there's so many things to do and that we do for an inclusive culture. And I will probably close that piece by saying there's 4 pillars that MulticultuReal, that we're built around. And that's awareness, that's accountability, that's action, and that's assessment. So those 4 are all needed to be in alignment within the strategy and the plan for an organization to have an inclusive culture.
It's really helpful. It brings to mind, I think you're going to like this point, that I was recently working with a veterans group, and they were talking about some positive impacts they were having. And the person is actually at the VA. And he said, behind every one of those statistics is a relationship. And it was really powerful. And your conversation brought that to mind.
Absolutely.
You mentioned, let's continue this conversation about the playground and ostracizing and bullying. I know you're very passionate about preventing, stopping bullying. Tell a bit more about where that passion came from.
Well, absolutely. It comes from a place of pain. myself being bullied when I was young. And I grew up in the inner city on the East Coast. But it could happen, of course, we know anywhere, suburb, rural, whatever, wherever. But the degree to which the name calling and actually also physical bullying occurred toward me, was terrifying. And it was terrifying. And I remember fear, I remember the challenges. I remember, in my home, there was the golden rule, treat people the way you want to be treated. It was love, okay? And while you try to hold on to that, you have to also fight to defend yourself and to make it through. And so that became a real devastating experience for me in my life. And then what happened that I'm probably to this day most ashamed of, and I don't have a problem with the vulnerability of stating this, but I became a bully, right? And so from 6th grade to around 10th, 11th grade, I was a hardcore bully. Now, when we look at bullying, it's verbal, it's physical, it's psychological, and now it's cyber. So we didn't have cyber bullying back then. Like if you had a disagreement, if you got teased and beat up or bullied, you can go home and you get away from it, and you may have to go back and face it the next day, that sort of thing. But it follows young people today. And so it's very concerning for me. I also look at the level of divisiveness, discord in our country. And I'm really concerned what young people are absorbing. What are adults role modeling? And so it becomes incumbent upon me to tell my story. When I'm in an auditorium full of young people, you can hear a pin drop. When I talk to leaders of organizations and I tell aspects of my story, you can see a moment of epiphany in them. Like to say, I got to look at me, Troy. I said, that's exactly what you need to do. It's like a mirror. Let's not be afraid of the mirror. So bullying has always been, something that I've wanted to work to eradicate as much as I can, and for us to at least combat bullying. So, it's 4 roles we play. And 4 roles in bullying are target, aggressor, bystander, and ally. And I hesitated there because we used to call target victim, and we used to call aggressor perpetrator, right? We don't want people to think that, you're a victim and own like just being a victim because of somebody targeting you. So you're a target. And then the aggressor, we don't, perpetrator sounds real criminal. We want people to know, like, you're an aggressor in the moment. So you're not a perpetrator for life. You're not a victim for life. But in the moment, there's that target and the aggressor roles. And then that bystander role is probably one that we really need to wake up around, because it was Einstein who once said, the world is in greatest peril, not by those who commit evil, but by those who stand by and do nothing, right? And so that bystander role is one that we need to do a lot of work on, with the goal, objective, and aim of us, understanding and embracing, allyship, right? To be an ally, to take a stand against bully behavior. And it plays out in the workplace. We know it does. But in society, we're seeing it on a level, I even talk to older people. Have you seen this level of incivility? I think we're in a fight for our humanity. So yeah, I'm going to continue to step out and be in front of and sound the bullhorn around, inclusive culture, kindness, respect, empathy, so that we could fight for our humanity.
So as you're pointing out, Troy, the world can be a tough place, and that doesn't stop when we become adults. Can you share a story about what resilience means to you and why it matters? When have you had to draw on your resilience recently?
Oh yeah, no question. Resilience it absolutely matters. I mean, I do a thing, called, I have a tool, and it's called 5S tool. It's about struggle, stress, survival, strategy, success. A lot of people are stuck in struggle and stress. Name somebody for me, any of us know that is not struggling with something, relationship, money, health, whatever it is, right? So I created this survival and success system that shows us how to have a strategy of shifting. And it looks at internal and external stages. And so this system, and so resilience for me, on the internal stages side, we look at trauma. And the opposite analysis of trauma is resilience. Like, while the trauma can leave devastation in its wake in our life, and those extended, family, friends, resilience certainly is that capacity to bounce back, to deal with, to cope, the coping mechanisms and all. And it's really important. I recently had an experience where I was driving and I needed my resilience because a trauma situation happened. And a guy just came out of nowhere and he pulled up on the side of my car. And when I saw he put his window down, I put my window down, I'm thinking he's saying, hey, your air on your tire is low or something like that. And the guy just laid into me on the most horrible verbal barrage of hate. Why did he do it? I accidentally cut somebody off 2 lights back. I put my window down, I put my hand up to them. Hey, I'm sorry. I saw they were tooting on their horn real loud. I'm sorry. They said first they were mad, but then they said, oh, the guy's got courtesy. So he's fine. This guy comes out of nowhere. He has nothing to do with me or the situation. And when he goes into that barrage, I just felt, again, like I'm the target, but I felt demoralized. I felt dehumanized. I felt degraded. I felt belittled. I felt attacked. And I had some words for him. And that is unlike me. In over 25 years, I have not engaged in any level of road rage. So the resilience was not keeping that to myself. I processed it with my family. I processed it with colleagues. And that's part of this 5S tool of mine. It's like process. When you have pain, process. When there's trauma, you need the opposite analysis is resilience. And through life, I've found resilience and I have faith. That helps me as well. But I just don't keep things internalized, because we should understand then that festers, and what happens is people implode and they explode. And we're just seeing too much of that in our society and world today.
Yeah, well, it's a good place to wrap up. And it's a theme our viewers and listeners are here in a variety of ways, right? Deal with stuff that's coming at you, or that stuff will deal with you. And if you don't deal with that, people around you pay the price, pick up the tab, because it bleeds over. Really powerful stuff. More on why inclusion matters in our workplaces and in our world with Troy Cicero. Stay tuned.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
Not all internet is priced this good. Switch to Extreme and go super fast for as low as $19.99 a month for a year. Oh yeah, hook up your home with powerful Wi-Fi, 99.99% reliability, and speeds that are FCC proven to be faster than advertised. Not all internet is priced this good. Switch today and get speeds starting at 100 meg for as low as $19.99 a month for a year. Call 844-EXTREME2 for details.
Welcome back to Resiliency Matters. We are speaking with Troy Cicero, president of MulticultuReal Communications. Troy, I'm going to feed some of your words back to you that I found quite brilliant and a lot to unpack here. So you say culture is the environment. Diversity Diversity is the vehicle, inclusion is the engine, and cultural competence is the fuel that we need to make it to our destination on the journey. Bring this to life for us.
Absolutely. So culture being the environment is within your organization, you know, the rules, the behaviors, the expectations, the experiences. And that's just like on the road. It's the environment that we're out on the road. It's culture all around us. Diversity being a vehicle, when you look at the cars on the road, I often tell people, you want to know how much diversity we have? Look at all the different cars on the road. Look at what people choose to drive that you would never choose to drive, or what you choose to drive that no one would choose to drive, right? There's diversity. It's all these differences. And when you go to get a car, what do we want to do? If you have a nice shiny car, but if you lift up that hood and that's a lousy engine, that's a broke down engine, you don't like that. That's not good. So inclusion, diversity is going to be recognizing those differences. Inclusion is going to be respecting the differences, but it's about the core of who we are, right? And so it's how we get the job done. Diversity is who does the work, inclusion, how we get the job done, but the respect, the essence of who a person is, their mind, their heart, their soul, that's your engine, okay? And then now when you start talking about cultural competence, the fuel, because no car is going to go without fuel. Where are you going? Nobody likes ever having been broke down on the side of a road, you ran out of gas, right? Well, that's going to be knowledge. That's going to be skills. That's going to be abilities. That's going to be capacity. That's going to be capabilities. That's going to be empathy. That's going to be emotional intelligence. All of that is what your cultural competence is, basically the ability to function effectively across lines of difference.
So let's look at some of those pieces more closely. Emotional intelligence, sometimes you're described as an emotional intelligence strategist.
Yes.
Tell us, what is emotional intelligence and why does it matter?
Yeah, emotional intelligence is the ability to stop and manage your emotions, think rationally, and choose wisely when dealing with any situation or any type of person. It's about proactive behavior versus reactive behavior. Reactive behavior is reckless. Why we don't want reactive behavior is because there are professional hot button pushers in the world. And if you're reactive, they got you. You say and do things. Don't you ever watch TV or social media, whatever, news, whatever, you read something, you say, what were they thinking? They weren't thinking. They were reactive. And I like to, when I'm leading leaders, I like to say, respond to situations, don't react. Respond means you stop, think, choose. So proact, how do you increase your emotional intelligence? You have to adopt proactive behavior. You have to say, I stop, think, choose, stop, manage your emotions, think rationally, choose wisely when dealing with any situation, any type of person. And I would tell you all the diversity, equity, inclusion work that we do. You can know all you get to know. You can get all kind of knowledge on DEI, but if you don't have emotional intelligence, it's going to all fall flat because you're going to be in situations that are heated and you're going to deal with people who are challenging to deal with. And if you don't have your EQ, you're not going to cope well. And we see it too often. So it's the secret to success dealing with people cross-culturally. EQ, emotional intelligence.
Excellent. Stop, think, choose. I put in there, stop, breathe, think, choose. Part of it.
Ooh, don't I do that? Don't we need to do that? That breathing. Oh, yes. Thank you for that. You just gave me an opportunity. I took it.
Yep. Another word you use, and it might not seem to fit in easily, but you integrate all of this, but you use the word accountability a lot. Talk about that.
Yeah, accountability is a willingness, and an obligation to accept responsibility and to account for one's actions. Accountability. And there's 5 things we need to be accountable for: our thoughts, our emotions, our attitude, our actions, and our behavior. So you think about when you take personal accountability, there is comfort that you'll gain, there's confidence that you'll gain, and there's competence that you'll gain. So that when situations occur, so for instance, I had a recent situation where somebody needed to give me feedback. And so as I listened well with empathy, how would I feel if I were them? Understanding when you listen to someone, you want to listen to them as if they're explaining versus complaining. So I'm listening to this person, they're explaining. They're a human being, they're a vessel that's worthy of being heard, valued, and respected. And so I listened really well. And so, but what I did was took accountability by stating to them, listen, there's 3 things I do. When somebody gives me feedback, I may not always like it, but I want it. It's allowed me to grow through the years, builds my resiliency because I grow and I know me. And if you're telling me about me and maybe some impact that I had on you, while it may not be my intent, the impact is you're offended. And no one could tell anybody, who could tell anybody whether they're offended or not? Only the person who's offended. So what I did was 3 things. I said, I'm going to take ownership, responsibility, and accountability. And then I circle back to tell you, it's about your thoughts, your emotions, your attitude, your actions, and behavior. We need to work on that. People need to work on those because, again, it gives you greater comfort. Wherever I'm going, if somebody needs to address me, if they catch me in a moment and they catch me off guard, well, I still have a level of comfort because I've been doing that type of work on accountability. And then that confidence, because you're doing the work. It's just like anybody, practice, 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 whether it's an athlete, whether it's a musician or anything else. I went to my daughter's Christmas, performance last night in the band, and I was looking at all the different people, and I was like, look at the performance, look at the confidence. So when you practice, 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 you show up and you perform and you can go, and it's good. And then that competence as well. So accountability is huge. We need more of it in our society. I'll add this last piece. When leaders say to me, Troy, we got this issue, we got that issue. What do we do? How do we handle it? First thing I say is, what's your relationship? And so your relationship and accountability, we created a relationship and accountability tool. And I won't go really heavy into it, but it's about our first level. Well, it's 4 levels. Our first level is about willingness, communication, understanding. So it's all about willingness, and accountability is a willingness to address an issue. Once you do that, then that tells you, go to communication. That's what's next, because that's key to getting to understanding. There's no way to get to understanding without going through communication. And you need willingness. And we in this society today, we can't afford to relinquish our willingness to engage.
Good stuff. I know you are a voracious reader. We had that conversation last time we chatted, and connoisseur of quotes, as I am. Yes. Share some of your favorite quotes, or just quotes that are top of mind with you today.
Oh, one solid bedrock quote is Maya Angelou, where she says, I've learned people will forget what you've done, people will forget what you've said, but people never forget how you make them feel. And there's so much in that, right? And you may not know how you make someone feel. And that's why an inclusive culture is one where you have feedback. So there's giving and receiving challenging feedback. And I help clients set that up. But 2 words that she stated there, most people overlook, and it's I've learned. If any of your viewers want to say anything that's really heavy or serious to them, and they want to get that out to an individual or group, a segment of society, or to the world, I've learned is what you want to put in front of anything you want to say that's powerful, that's poignant, right? That's prominent, that you need to get out. I've learned, because who could dispute it? What's somebody gonna tell you, no, you didn't learn that? So you put that up front, that's coming from a place of experience and wisdom. And she gives it to us in that one, because people will never forget how you make them feel. That makes me think about. That makes me conscious, and that makes me remindful of my conscience, that inner voice that tells me what's right and what's wrong. Am I saying something right or wrong? Or am I doing something right or wrong? And I think, we have a crisis of conscience in our nation, in our society right now. This isn't gloom and doom. This is, hey, let's wake up and let's get with the program. Let's get a grip. Let's get a grasp on this, right? And it sometimes requires an epiphany, that realization that we need to do this together. And so that's why I'm here.
Keeping it real.
All day.
You also talk about the difference between the golden rule and the platinum rule. And I'm not sure everyone who's tuned in is aware of the platinum rule. You talked about the golden rule. Talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I was raised on the golden rule, treat people the way you want to be treated. And I ask groups of people, so what's the platinum rule? So, you know, in music, if somebody get a gold album, oh, that's wonderful. But when their album goes platinum, back when there was albums. So platinum is a higher level. It's treating people the way they want to be treated, right? And so people are different. And we have to not look at different as less than. That becomes the biggest challenge, right? So it's about treating people the way they want to be treated. And culturally, people have different norms and customs and things for us to understand. And so instead of us creating this tension, and then the trust declines, and then we create these silos and then walls, and, you know, let's build these bridges and understand, you know, there's a difference between the golden rule and the platinum rule. Both of them are essential today.
And your work is essential today in our nation and our world. So the final words on helping our viewers and listeners understand why it's essential that they get involved and contribute to inclusive and welcoming environments.
Yeah, no question. I mean, it's I was at a client yesterday, and they had a picture that said, everyone is different, everyone belongs. Everyone is different, everyone belongs. And I want to close with a quote by Mother Teresa. She has like a message. She says, people are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. What you spend years creating, others could destroy overnight. Create anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, some may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. Give the best you have, and it would never be enough. Give your best anyway. In the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway.
Powerful. Thank you, Troy, for this conversation, and thank you,
Mollie.
Each of you tuning in today on MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.